It's 7:12 in the morning. You're sitting at your kitchen table, staring at a number that would mean absolutely nothing to almost anyone else. 0.994 Bitcoin. Your coffee is sitting next to you. It's cold by now. You forgot to drink it. You're only 0.006 Bitcoin away. To most people, that sounds like nothing. To you, it feels like the final stretch of a marathon. Because today, your automatic Bitcoin purchase goes through. And if you did the math correctly, by tonight, for the first time in your life, you might own one full Bitcoin. For years, you imagined this moment would feel spectacular. Maybe champagne, maybe staring at your wallet for 10 straight minutes. What you didn't know back then was that the journey to one Bitcoin would end up being far more interesting than the moment itself. But how did you even get here? To understand that, we have to go back a few years, and it all started with Peter. Peter's actual name is Peter. That matters because eventually you stopped calling him Peter and started calling him Peter Schiff. But we'll get to that. You're 27 when you first start seriously thinking about Bitcoin. Friday night, you're sitting at a bar with Peter. Peter is one of your best friends, and he has a very special talent. Within about 30 seconds, he can explain why practically every investment on Earth is a terrible idea. Real estate? Way too expensive. Stocks? Completely overvalued. Bonds? Not worth it. Bitcoin? Now things get interesting. Peter leans back and says, Bitcoin doesn't have any intrinsic value. You nod, not because you understand what he means, but because Peter says it like he personally invented intrinsic value. You ask, have you ever actually looked into it? Peter says, yeah. Later, you find out Peter read one article. One. But Peter is convinced. Bitcoin is nonsense. The next morning, you're lying on your couch with a slight hangover, and you do something Peter specifically told you not to do. You buy $50 worth of Bitcoin. No strategy, no deep conviction. You just want to know what it feels like. You hit buy. And afterward, you see 0.00 something Bitcoin. You stare at the number, then at the $50, then back at the Bitcoin. You had no idea a number could look that long and that disappointing at the same time. You take a screenshot and send it to Peter. His response arrives about 12 seconds later. Don't say I didn't warn you. You invested $50. Peter reacts like you just took out a second mortgage on your parents' house and put everything on red. 2 weeks later, you're up about $12. And now something dangerous happens. You start thinking you're a genius. $12 in profit. What more proof could you possibly need? You figured Bitcoin out. Buy, wait, get rich. So you buy again, more this time. And naturally, Bitcoin drops almost immediately afterward. Down 5% in the morning, down 8% by lunch, down 12% that evening, down 16% the next morning. You keep refreshing the app like somehow that might help. It doesn't. Your phone buzzes. Peter. A message. Just 2 words. Told you. You still don't understand how 2 words can feel that annoying. You don't respond. Bitcoin keeps falling. Eventually, you can't take it anymore. You sell almost everything at a loss. 2 weeks later, Bitcoin goes back up. Of course it does. And that gives you your first genuinely important lesson about Bitcoin. Not about mining. Not about monetary policy, not about cryptography. You learn that you are emotionally completely unqualified for short-term trading. So you finally do something you probably should have done before buying Bitcoin in the first place. You start reading. What even is Bitcoin? Why can there only ever be 21 million Bitcoin? What is mining? Why does Bitcoin use electricity? What is a private key? What is a wallet? And why should you hold your Bitcoin yourself? At first, maybe you understand 20% of it. You read an article about mining and somehow finish more confused than when you started. You watch a video about the blockchain, and 10 minutes later, you're no longer sure what a block is. But you keep going. Peter does too, just in his own way. Every few weeks, he sends you another negative headline. Bitcoin is about to get banned. Then, Bitcoin can never work as money. And eventually, Bitcoin uses more electricity than Belgium does in an entire year. Peter has basically created his own personal news service dedicated exclusively to bad Bitcoin stories. Eventually, you reply, thanks, Peter Schiff. Peter writes back, who's Peter Schiff? You explain it to him. He doesn't think it's funny. You do. From that day forward, Peter's contact name in your phone is no longer Peter. It's Peter Schiff. Meanwhile, something more important is happening to you. You're beginning to understand that Bitcoin might be more than just a price on your phone. Nobody can simply decide tomorrow to create another 10 million Bitcoin. There will never be more than 21 million. And slowly, the way you think starts to change. Maybe you're not buying Bitcoin just so you can have more dollars someday. Maybe you're buying Bitcoin because, over the long run, You want to depend a little less on the dollar maintaining its purchasing power. And that changes the way you look at falling prices too. Before, red meant you're getting poorer. Now part of you also thinks, I can get more sats for the same amount of money. So you set up an automatic recurring buy, $100 every month. No debt, no leverage, no selling your car. $100 automatically. Bitcoin goes up, $100. Bitcoin goes down, $100. Peter sends you 3 articles, still $100. Your recurring buy doesn't know Peter exists. That's probably a good thing. After about a year, you own roughly 0.08 Bitcoin. You open a calculator, you run the numbers. Then you try a different Bitcoin price, then a higher monthly contribution. 5 minutes later, you close the calculator. Your conclusion is simple. This is going to take a while. And for the first time, you tell yourself, I'm never going to own a whole Bitcoin anyway. A full Bitcoin is for other people, people who started earlier, computer nerds, people who just happened to get in at exactly the right time, not you. Then you reach 0.1 Bitcoin, 1/10 of a Bitcoin, the first number that somehow feels substantial. That weekend, you see Peter. Bitcoin has gone up a lot. Peter says, I definitely wouldn't buy now, way too expensive. You ask, so when would you buy? When it has a real crash. A few months later, Bitcoin has a real crash. You text Peter, buy now? Peter responds, are you crazy? Something is obviously wrong right now. You read the message twice, and then you realize something. Peter is never going to buy Bitcoin. When Bitcoin goes up, it's too expensive. When Bitcoin goes down, it's too dangerous. When Bitcoin goes sideways, it's boring. Peter is waiting for a moment when Bitcoin is cheap, safe, and already going up. Unfortunately, that moment exists exclusively inside Peter's head. Your recurring buy continues, 0.12, 0.16, 0.2. From the outside, nothing changes. Same apartment, same job, same car. Then you get a raise, $200 more per month after taxes. In the past, that money probably would have slowly disappeared into everyday spending. This time, you put an extra $100 into Bitcoin. You keep the other 100. You're saving more while still having more money to spend. 0.22, 0.25, a quarter of a Bitcoin. That night, you crack open a beer. Peter happens to be there. He has no idea why you're celebrating. While you raise your glass, he shows you a video about gold. Of course he does. He says, at least this is something real. You say, cool. A few years earlier, you would have spent the next 30 minutes arguing with him. By now, you've learned something. Not every evening needs to turn into a debate about Bitcoin. That's actually one of the nicest stages of becoming a Bitcoiner. You stop trying to convince everyone. Eventually, a coworker asks, didn't you have some Bitcoin? You answer, a little. That becomes your standard answer. A little. No number, no discussion. Because by now, you've realized that telling everyone exactly how much Bitcoin you own might not be the smartest idea. So slowly, you become the secret Bitcoiner. Not secret in some hoodie and parking garage kind of way. People just don't really know how much you own anymore. At 0.3 Bitcoin, something strange starts happening. You automatically begin pricing things in Bitcoin. A new phone? Sats. A couch? Sats. A luxury weekend getaway? Sats. One day, you're standing in front of an enormous TV, almost as big as your wall. You want it. Then you roughly calculate how much Bitcoin you'd have to give up to buy it. And suddenly, your old TV at home looks surprisingly sharp again. Later, Peter says, Bitcoin is making you cheap. Peter regularly drives several extra miles because another gas station is 3 cents cheaper per gallon. You point that out. We changed the subject after that. At 0.4 Bitcoin, Bitcoin becomes popular again. Coworkers who previously declared Bitcoin dead start asking, is it too late to get in? You say, no idea. Years ago, you would have given them some kind of price prediction. Today, you know you have no idea what Bitcoin will do next week. And more importantly, you no longer need to know. Then the day comes. 0.5 Bitcoin. Half a Bitcoin. You're sitting on your couch on a Wednesday night, 0.5003. Halfway there. Suddenly,
one full Bitcoin no longer feels like fantasy. It feels reachable. And that's exactly when Bitcoin does the one thing you don't need it to do. It starts going up. Fast. Then even faster. The internet is full of rocket emojis again, price targets, and people who apparently believed in Bitcoin all along. Your friends are celebrating. You're sitting there thinking, could you guys please stop buying for a minute? I'm not done yet. Your Bitcoin is becoming more valuable in dollar terms, but at the same time, the other half you still need is getting more expensive. You keep buying. 0.53, 0.56, 0.59. Then comes the next major crash. Except this time, you don't own $50 worth of Bitcoin. Now it hurts. Thousands of dollars disappear on paper. Peter is having the time of his life. Told you this thing could go to zero. You really want to keep buying? The sell button is one tap away. You don't tap it. Not because you're relaxed. You're not. Looking back, every Bitcoin crash sounds like an amazing buying opportunity. While you're actually living through one, it feels more like the entire internet is screaming that you're an idiot. But this time, you have a plan. Your recurring buy continues, automatically. It doesn't read the news, it doesn't know Peter. And a few months later, you own 0.68 Bitcoin. The price hasn't fully recovered, but your Bitcoin stack has grown significantly. At around 0.7 Bitcoin comes the next logical stage of your development. You build a spreadsheet, obviously. How long until 1 Bitcoin? Same monthly amount, higher monthly amount. Bitcoin price falling, Bitcoin price rising, Christmas bonus, work bonus. At some point, you even calculate how much faster you could get there if you sold your car. Then you look out the window. The car is sitting there. You need it tomorrow. You delete that row. You're a Bitcoiner, not a maniac. At 0.75 Bitcoin, Peter asks, how much Bitcoin do you actually have now? A little. You say that every time. Then I guess you already know. Of course, he knows absolutely nothing. That's the point. At 0.8 Bitcoin, though, things start getting dangerous. Now you want to see the one, immediately. You look at your emergency fund, your vacation savings. You open Facebook Marketplace and start taking pictures of a game console, a camera lens, and a speaker. Then you realize you're halfway through selling your living room just so you can see a 1 appear inside an app a little sooner. That's when you catch yourself. Bitcoin is supposed to make your life freer, not take over your life. So you create rules. No emergency fund, no debt, no money you'll need anytime soon. That 1 Bitcoin has to fit into your life. Your life doesn't have to revolve around getting that 1 Bitcoin. So things move more slowly again. 0.83,
0.86, 0.9. Now you can see the finish line, and practically nobody knows. You like it that way. Because visible wealth is easy. Everyone notices an $80,000 car. The same amount of wealth in Bitcoin could be sitting right next to someone and they'd never know. No logo, no rims, no exhaust, just information. Someday, you don't want to look rich. You want to own things. There's a difference. 0.92, 0.94, 0.96. One evening, Peter is sitting at your place. Bitcoin has gone up again. Peter says, at this point, it's not even worth buying anymore. You ask, Peter, what price would you actually buy Bitcoin at? He thinks about it, then says, when the risk is much lower. And suddenly, you understand the difference between the two of you. Peter is waiting for the opportunity to buy safety at a discount. You've accepted that the combination doesn't exist. You say, okay. Peter looks at you. Okay, what? Nothing. You smile. He hates that. And that brings us back to today. 7:12 in the morning, 0.994 Bitcoin. Your coffee is cold. Today, your recurring Bitcoin purchase goes through. You head to work. Meetings, emails, lunch. Nobody has any idea that for years you've been working toward a completely invisible goal. At 10:43, your phone buzzes. Peter. Of course it's Peter. A link. Economist warns of massive Bitcoin crash. Underneath it, Peter writes, "Just saying." You respond, "Thanks, Peter Schiff." He sends you the middle finger emoji. And with that, your morning financial analysis is complete. Later that afternoon, your phone buzzes again. Your recurring Bitcoin purchase has gone through. You don't open the app. Not yet. You don't want this moment to happen between two emails. So you wait until work is over. You drive home. Same car, same apartment. You make yourself a coffee and sit down at the same kitchen table you were sitting at that morning. Then you open the app. And there it is. 1.00 something Bitcoin. 1 Bitcoin. You refresh. Still there. After all these years, you actually own 1 full Bitcoin. 1 out of a maximum of 21 million. And then, nothing happens. No confetti, no music. Satoshi Nakamoto doesn't send you a congratulations card. Your boss doesn't call and say, "Don't bother coming in tomorrow." Your refrigerator hums exactly the same way it did yesterday. You're just sitting at your kitchen table, drinking coffee, owning 1 Bitcoin. But inside your head, the last few years start playing backward. The first $50, the first panic sale, Peter's first told you, the $100 recurring buys, 0.1, 0.5, the crash, the spreadsheet, the living room you almost sold. And suddenly, you realize something. This Bitcoin wasn't created by one massive decision. It came from hundreds of tiny ones. $100, then another 100, later 200, a bonus, a raise, a crash, another crash. Don't sell, don't overdo it, keep going. For years. You open your conversation with Peter. For a second, you almost send him a screenshot, just the number 1. Then you stop and close the chat again. No, Peter doesn't need to know. Nobody really needs to know. And somehow, that feels like the perfect ending. For years, Peter explained to you why you shouldn't own Bitcoin. Today, you own 1, and Peter doesn't even know. Later that night, you open your wallet one more time. 1 Bitcoin. For years, you thought this moment would make you feel rich. It doesn't. You mostly feel calm. From the outside, everything is the same. Same apartment, same car, same job, same Peter. But you're not the same person anymore. You used to want Bitcoin to make you rich quickly. Now you know how to wait. You used to panic sell when the price dropped. Now you have a plan. You used to want to tell everyone you owned Bitcoin. Now almost nobody knows how much. And you used to think you needed to know where the price was going next. Today, you know you have absolutely no idea. And that's completely fine. You didn't learn how to
predict the future. You learned that you don't have to. Tomorrow, Bitcoin could skyrocket. Or it could crash. Peter will probably text you either way. If Bitcoin goes up, bubble. If Bitcoin goes down, told you. Some things never change. And somewhere, right now, someone is sitting at their kitchen table. Maybe they're 25, maybe 35, maybe 50. They're looking at their first Bitcoin transaction. $50, 0.0 something Bitcoin. And they're thinking, I'm never going to own a full Bitcoin. That's exactly what you thought too. Because 1 Bitcoin feels impossible when you think you have to buy the whole thing at once. But you never did. You built it piece by piece, month by month, Satoshi by Satoshi, crash by crash, doubt by doubt. Until one day, a number with way too many zeros became one single number. 1. But the story doesn't end at 1 Bitcoin, because owning 1 Bitcoin is one thing. The much more interesting question is, what happens if that Bitcoin eventually changes your life? What happens when your quiet little savings plan suddenly becomes a fortune? When on a good day, your Bitcoin gains more value than you used to make in an entire year. And on a bad day, tens of thousands, maybe even $100,000 disappear. Do you actually feel rich then? Do you quit your job? Do you buy the huge house, the sports car? Or does surprisingly little change? Because owning 1 Bitcoin and actually becoming rich because of Bitcoin are 2 completely different stories.
And that's exactly what the next video is about. What does your life actually feel like when Bitcoin makes you rich? Click the video you see on screen right now, and I'll see you over there.